morning, Nigeria, and a beautiful Saturday to you. Welcome to today's newspaper review. I'll be taking you through the segments. First, we'll start with the Saturday Vanguard. On the Vanguard newspaper, we're looking at Osun State, and the lead page is talking about will bread, rice, morning determine winner. That's what the Osun State governorship election vote will determine today. Then at the top of the newspaper on 2027, Atiku has asked court to disqualify Tinubu over names and certificate controversy. Then we're looking at Kwara State. Then in Kwara State, how Governor Abdul Razak restored glory of primary basic education, took public schools to world stage. At the bottom of the newspaper, this is coming from Adeleke, the governor of Osun State. He said, I'll probe political violence. Perhaps he wins this election in Osun State. He said he will probe political violence. And then in Enugu State, the Enugu State busts criminal syndicate. Police kidnap suspect. You can continue reading on page 7 of the newspaper. Away from that newspaper to the Daily Sun. On the Daily Sun newspaper, Osun State is deciding their election today. Decision day in Osun State. Today is a decision day in Osun State. Then at the top of the newspaper, fresh concern over state police. Police rescued 5 kidnapped victims as gunmen abduct 17 passengers in Benue State. Enugu busts criminal syndicate as police nabbed 14 kidnapped suspects. At the bottom of the newspaper, on 2027, Atiku Abubakar, the ADC presidential candidate, is saying that courts should disqualify President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Atiku in court wants Tinubu disqualified. Then by the right side of the newspaper at the bottom, on entertainment, this is coming from Nollywood actress Tana Adelana. She said she has no regret having children at young age. Coming up next is the Punch newspaper. On the Punch newspaper, we're still focusing on Osun State poll. APC Accord wage 20,000 naira per vote war. At the top of the newspaper, coming from Mommy Iwa on entertainment, I attract guys who can handle strong women. Mommy Iwa, the comedian, says she attracts men who can handle strong women. Still in the same newspaper, hopelessness. Borno families sell houses to pay ransom. This is a very sad story here. At the bottom of the newspaper, haunted to death. Brutal fate of vulnerable women. Branded witches. Still in the same newspaper, this is coming from a wife report. She said, sacked after 19 years work, my husband still in DSS detention. The woman said her husband is still in DSS detention after being sacked for over 19 years. Still in the same newspaper, Lakurawa terrorists kill 4 soldiers in Sokoto State. Tinubu dragged to court EU over INEC documents. Up next is the Daily Independent. On the Daily Independent newspaper, we're looking at the new power brokers of Nigerian politics. Then at the top of the newspaper, we're looking at EFCC arraigns man for alleged 56.4 million naira pilgrimage fraud in Ibadan. Still in the same newspaper, Idoma first-class law graduates get 33,000 euros tuition, 25 million naira upkeep as Opla fulfills promise. Idoma first-class law graduates get 33,000 euros tuition, 25 million naira upkeep as Opla fulfills promise. At the bottom of the newspaper, beyond the arrest, Who is supplying criminals with locally made guns? That's a question that needs answers. Still in the same newspaper, 2026 poll. Tinubu urges peaceful, credible election as Osun elects new governor today. Still in the same newspaper, Tinubu's certificate. Atiku challenges president's 2027 eligibility in court. Away from that newspaper to The Guardian. On The Guardian newspaper, we are still looking at Osun State poll. Can federal hawks crush EDE doves? That's a question that deserves an answer. Still in the same newspaper, Nigerians will support the party with proven capacity to deliver good governance in 2027. That's coming from Amao. Still in the same newspaper, Abuja at 50, Wike remember institutions' legacy. Still in the same newspaper, this is coming from the RHI. Assessing Oluremi Tinubu's social intervention program 3 years after. At the bottom of the newspaper, Tinubu woos diaspora capital, says Nigeria now ready for investment. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu says that Nigeria is now ready for investment. Still in the same newspaper, Nigeria, United States conclude talks to deepen counter-terrorism cooperation. Private capital, policy reforms, key to achieving Nigeria $1 trillion economic targets. That's coming from an expert report. Family, associates celebrate Albert Wick's legacy of banking, nation building. You can continue reading on page 35 of the newspaper. Recall the Wiki that died years ago. Families and associates are celebrating his banking, nation building. Up next is the Matrix newspaper. On the Matrix newspaper, the Osun State is the dominating headlines on our newspaper today. Osun decides it's D-Day. So today is the D-Day for the decision to be made who is going to govern the state. At the top of the newspaper, NUPRC pushes crude swap plan to boost domestic refining. Still in the newspaper, Petron backs Tinubu's plan to revive refineries. 2027, Atiku drags Tinubu to court over alleged NYSC certificate forgery. Still in the same newspaper on entertainment, this is coming from Nollywood actress Nkechi Blessing. She said, "Call me broke, I don't care." So the Nollywood actress doesn't care if she's being called broke or not. Nigeria, a Muslim country, claim 28 of 48 ministers are Christians. FFK blasts Sheikh Jingi. Still in the same newspaper, Oshoba credits reforms. FX stability as Apapa Customs hits historic 323 billion naira revenue in July. Up next for today is the New Telegraph. On the New Telegraph newspaper, Osun State decides. Police deploy drones, 30 mobile units, restrict vehicular movements. Police deploy drones, 30 mobile units, restricts vehicular movements ahead of the election. Still in the same newspaper, alleged cover-up. Pilots doctored black box after botch Asaba landing. Coming from an NSIB report. Still in the same newspaper, 6 years on, Burna Boy's twice as tall, surpasses 2 billion streams globally. Atiku challenges Tinubu's qualification for 2027 elections. NUPRC plans crude swap to boost local refineries, cut costs. Still in the same newspaper, gunmen intercept 18-seater bus, abduct 17 travelers in Benue State. Away from that newspaper to our last newspaper for today, which is the Daily Trust. On the Daily Trust newspaper, my life in captivity. coming from Justice Bunza. Recall the justice that was abducted. He has recounted his life in captivity. He said, I trekked for about 25 kilometers barefooted. This is a really sad one. Still in the same newspaper, I run and jump like an 18-year-old. General John Atom Kekpera recounts his ordeal. He said he jumped and run like an 18-year-old child. Still in the same newspaper, 2027, can opposition unite? That's a question for the opposition politicians to answer. Over 40,000 security personnel in Osun State as election holds today. Get the full story on page 29 of the newspaper. Lastly, for the segment, murder. 2 children die in Kaduna building collapse. The full story is on page 23 of the newspaper. That's a very sad one. A mother and 2 children dies in Kaduna building collapse. We've come to the end of the newspaper review. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates. I am Kasitoni.